Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, amma ba'd. Assalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ya ikhwan wa akhwat, my dear respected brothers and sisters in Al-Islam. In this video, inshallah ta'ala, we are going to be going through the basics that one needs to know about Tawheed. Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, which means the lordship and the actions of Allah. Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, our worship towards Allah and our actions towards Allah. And Tawheed al-Asma' wa Sifat, believing in the oneness of the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is known that the likes of Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam At-Tabari, Imam Ibn Battah Al-Ukbari, Rahimahumullah ta'ala, and many others from the Salaf al-Salih taught the taqseem of Tawheed, which basically means the division or the divisions of Tawheed. Naam. So if one was to ask you, oh brother, where are you getting this taqseem of Tawheed from? And then you can refer to the book of Shaykh Abdul Razak ibn Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad, Hafidahullah, his book, The Taqseem of Tawheed, where the noble Shaykh brings forth many individuals from the Salaf, including the names that I've mentioned before, and how they basically mentioned the divisions of Tawheed. Naam. So to start, we're going to go through the first chapter of the Quran, Surah Al-Fatiha, and bring forth our evidences of where the various versions of Tawheed are, or various categories of Tawheed are in the Quran. Naam. So as we start, we open Surah Al-Fatiha, and in the second line it says, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Praise be to Allah, Lord of the worlds. This verse is clearly affirming the Rububiyyah of Allah. Remember, Rububiyyah means the lordship of Allah. So it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that has control of every single thing. Every single atom in the universe, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has control over. Now we have certain deviant sects that believe that their imams are the ones who control, the world. It is their shuyukh that now have got permission from Allah to control the earth. La, this is not correct. We know it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that controls everything, and He has appointed His angels to do certain things for Him. But this is through the will of Allah and through the permission of Allah. No man has the power over such things. Okay, so we move on to the third verse. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, the entirely merciful, the especially merciful. This verse is clearly affirming the names and attributes of Allah, which is Asma wa Sifat. Now we only refer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His names and attributes, and we should refrain from naming our children names that are specific to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For example, Rahman Ar-Rahim. Or other one should, name their children Abdul Rahman or Abdul Rahim or Abdul Khaliq or Abdul Wahhab, and so on and so forth. And as we see in the subcontinent, many individuals have named their children names that are specific to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And also another thing that I would like to mention is that whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has affirmed for Himself, we also affirm. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, in Surah Taha, verse number 20, Ar-Rahmanu ala al-arsh istawa. Ar-Rahmanu ala al-arsh istawa. The most merciful is above the throne, firmly established. Now, one may ask, How can Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be sitting on a throne? This is not what we believe. We believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above the throne in His own majestic way. Not how one may sit on the chair with his arms to his side and his feet on the floor. We do not picture Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like how we see ourselves. Like it says in the Quran, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. Allah is not like the creation and we are not like Him. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says He is above the throne, and when He says He has hands, we affirm this, but now we do not look at our own hands and say, look, Allah has hands like ours. However Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above the throne, or whether He has hands, it is in His own majestic way, and we do not picture it with our own imagination, and we don't distort the meaning, we don't negate the meaning, we don't give our own meaning, and so on and so forth. Naam. Okay, so now we move on to verse number 4. Maliki yawmiddin, Master of the Day of Judgment. Again, this verse is clearly affirming the rububiyyah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the lordship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one, is the only master of the Day of Judgment. No imam can save you, no shaykh can save you. Do you understand? It's just only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that's going to be there judging everyone. And it is with the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that one will enter Jannah. And now moving on to the 5th verse. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. It is you we worship, and it is you we ask for help. This is affirming Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. It is only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we worship, and it is only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala we call without any intermediaries. Not like how the Christians did with Isa alayhi salatu wassalam. We don't have any intermediaries between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like the kuffar of Quraysh, when they said we worship Allah, when they said Allah controls everything, in essence when they worshipped Allah, they actually worshipped their saints, they worshipped their rabbis and so on and so forth. Sorry, not rabbis, but their leaders and so on and so forth. And they said we are only worshipping them to get closer to Allah. This is what you call intermediaries. Now, in this day and age, we sadly have individuals again from the Middle East and the subcontinent, the Asian subcontinent. Now they make istighatha, which means they pray to other than Allah, and they ask their saints in their graves, and even they go to Medina and they start making dua to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they start asking them, oh Prophet, oh Saint, oh Sheikh, grant me children, and grant me a baby boy, and grant me a baby girl, and so on and so forth. But this verse, what is this verse saying? It is saying we only worship you, and it is only you we ask for help. Dua is only for Allah. Ibadah is only for Allah. Ubudiyyah is only for Allah. Naam. Likewise, if we are in dire need, we should bow down to Allah and prostrate to Allah and make dua in sujood, rather than going and saying Ya Rasulullah Madad, or Ya Ali Madad, or Ya Abdul Qadir Madad. Madad is only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that sense. So inshallah ta'ala, I've tried my best to mention the Tawheed, the taqseem of Tawheed that is in the Quran. If you want to know the deeper meaning and understanding of Tawheed, then I refer you to the books such as Kitab al-Tawheed, Usul al-Thalatha, Aqeedah al-Wasitiyya, Aqeedah al-Tahawiyya, and so on and so forth, the books of the Mashaykh of the past. Na'am. Any goodness, any khair, any benefit from this video has come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And any mistakes, misconceptions has come from me and the accursed shaitan. If there is any mistakes, you can inshallah correct me in the comment section below, or I'll leave my email in the box below, and you can email me, and inshallah we can talk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And of course Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best.